Okay, everyone, I have completely cleaned out the doll. I have all of the old paint taken off and it's been cleaned. It is completely dry. We're going to start with our first layer, and I'm going to put down a flesh layer. So let me get everything into the camera. Here's the paint pan. These are the paint brushes that I plan on using. Since this is a fairly big baby, I'm going to go ahead and use this middle area. About this much paint. And I'm using the Mona Lisa thinner.
Mommy.
Alright, a little more on there. Mix this in really well. And as you're doing layers, you're constantly going to have to swirl this around and keep it mixed because it will separate. And you will, if you're working slow, you'll have to keep adding the thinner because it evaporates.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
That looks fairly good. So now I'm going to use the fan brush and a modeling sponge, which I'm pretty sure I have videos on how to make these. And we're just going to swirl it around and apply it on here. And then we're going to pounce onto the cat. I always start with an arm because then if I have it too strong, it's easier to just remove. Now this baby is supposed to have a good natural skin tone with just a little bit of mottling and no stork bites or anything like that. You want to try to avoid the fingernails. We'll come back to that at a later time. If you feel like you have too much, you're going to take a blank sponge. Alright. You're lightly pouncing because if you pounce too hard, you're going to get a big pool of the thinner and the paint. Same thing, try to avoid the nails, but you want to get everywhere else. Especially watch your creases because paint will pool in those creases. Sometimes you might have to take the brush and kind of go over it where there's a lot of creases to make sure you get in there, especially the toes. And then if you have a lot of pooling, which I don't, you want to get in there and mop that out. As always, this is how I do it. This is how I've been doing it for years, but it doesn't mean this is the only way to do it. Some reborn artists are very passionate that the way they do it is the only way and the only right way, and that's not true. Especially if you're making these just for yourself, then you know what? It's for you. You make it how you want to make it. And then being a reborn, it definitely has a lot of creases. So with this layer, and it doesn't matter what flesh tone you use, you really should not see a big difference. This is just putting down our base layer. Even if I use the darkest of brown flesh tones, I should not see a huge difference. That's how thin this should be. If you can see a marked difference, then you have went too dark, and when you bake it, it'll come out very chalky and white, and then the next layers will not build up very well. In fact, you can see I've been pouncing, and you really don't see much color on this white.
Is there something you haven't been telling us? No. Are you keeping secrets from us? Must be. Rebecca said you got one.
Okay, now onto the head.
Does he have a boyfriend?
No.
What's his name?
Oh, God.
Now on the face, you need to try to avoid the lips right now.
Hang up the phone.
We'll get to them later.
Hang up the phone.
You got it?
Hey, you know, I was just thinking, Allison, and I know you eat it with Grandma. We need to take this, put it over by the TV, move that big paper. That way, when Jane, she ain't stuck on here, and you don't have half of it sticking in your doorway.
What?
Where the table is, it's got that box and stuff on it. We need to take this over there, put it there, and move that table.
I can't even see that.
That way, that won't be sticking in your door.
I can stick to it.
Okay. We'll stick in your door. What? I don't talk to
Sorry if you hear a bunch of noise in the background. I'm never on my own here. There's always a house full of people, so it's hard to tell what you hear.
Jen Cheyenne. Matt Raven had the birthday party every year for Jen and Cheyenne together.
Oh my.
So like Jen's is in December and Cheyenne's this week. So they just,
Why would that be so loud?
they read the community center has a birthday party for both of them.
Let's pick it up.
No, I'm not talking on the phone.
I think I'm going to have people watching just because they want to see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to have people watching just because they're lonely and they want to hear conversation. I think everyone, by the time it's over, is going to know my whole family because they're so loud and they love to talk. Alright. Now, I just want to point out, and I don't know how it's showing up, it looks like it is showing up really well, that you can see how shiny this is. And that is not from the paint or the mineral. It's because this baby was cleaned with the acetone. And like I said, later on I'll show you how we're going to fix this. But this gives you a good indication that it's been stripped. This is also something good to know if you buy a kit from someone online and not a manufacturer, and they say that it's a new kit and you get it and it just seems really shiny as you're putting the layers on, you know that that person actually stripped the kit before that they sold it. So this baby is ready for its first bake, and I'm using a New Wave oven for it. So I will show you. Hopefully, we'll see. Show you how to put it in here.
Oh, the one today is not Adrian's party. Adrian's going to a party.
Alright.
We ain't still got all the party for Adrian's party.
Okay. This is like way close. Let's jack this up a bit. Okay. Whoop. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's the oven. And if you're doing dolls, you have to have the expander ring that's right here because you're going to need the room. The one that I have this down on the bottom. And this is batting that you use for blankets. And I've been using it multiple times and I've never had a problem with the heat. And you want it to come up a little bit on the edges so they don't touch. So then you just layer it in. You don't want the pieces to be touching.
Oh, you know you're doing it for the rest of the day.
Okay. They can be snug, but you don't want them touching. So there we go. That looks pretty good. And then you put the top on. And this one, particular one, this is the New Wave Pro. Hold on. I just knocked the head over. You're going to do your cook time of 7, power level 8, and you're going to start and it's going to go. Now if you do a thick layer or if you do multiple layers, a thick layer would be like the nails. You're going to want to do a cook time of 8. And then when we seal, we're going to do a cook time of 8 a couple times just to make sure everything is baked in and it has cured. So when we get the baby out, we'll take a look at the next layer.